All right, boys and girls, let's talk a little bit about this second part of our curriculum topic study, which is student content knowledge. There are 3 parts of the rubric, as you, I'm sure, have looked at by now. One of the points of confusion has been this 3 age division portion. And so I wanted to talk a minute about where that comes from. When we look at the 2 online resources which we are told to use, I'm just going to use the adaptation CTS as a sample. It's these identify concepts and specific ideas is what correlates to the section of student content knowledge, and it tells us we're using the benchmarks for science literacy and the National Science Education Standards. Well, that's all well and good, except these 2 resources divide the grades differently. When we go to the National Science Education Standards, they have really 2 levels that we're worried about, K4 and 5-8. But when we go to the benchmarks for scientific literacy, they have 3 levels that we're worried about, K2, 3-5, 6-8. So, what you need to do as the person creating this curriculum topic study is decide which way works best for you. If you think in 2 levels, the way National Science Education Standards think, then write it as K4, 5-8. If you think in 3 levels, as in early childhood, later elementary, and then middle school, write it that way. Either way, you're going to meet the requirements of the rubric, which is to include appropriate content for students. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is that I've added a resource that isn't in the Curriculum Topic Study Guide, which is the AAAS Science Assessment website. And we're going to be using this in part 3 as well, but what you'll do is pick on the topic that seems to relate to your topic. In this case, it would be evolution and natural selection. And find the big idea that correlates the closest with yours. That ours would be inherited traits are favorable. And there's 3 things here. What we want is items and student performance. When we click on that, we're going to get a list of ideas that were assessed for students in middle grades and students in high school. And if we go all the way down to the bottom, then we see only 20% of middle grade students understood that species can change over generations because individuals with traits that are helpful in the current environment are more likely to survive and pass those traits on to their offspring, which is the theory of natural selection in terms of evolution. Now, if we want to know more about this 20% or this idea, we can click on it, and it will open up a sample multiple choice question that was asked of those middle schoolers. Could individuals of a species look different today than individuals of the same species did many generations ago? Why or why not? And we get some information over here. The correct answer was C. Answers A and D were written to address common misconceptions, and we'll be talking more about these in the 3rd part of our curriculum topic study. But the most common answer was B. These are similar responses, but specifically designed to see if they understood that those changes just get passed on, or they get passed on because certain traits are more likely to survive. And when we look at how students answered, the majority picked B, then A, then C. And so this lets us know that this is a concept that is problematic for middle grade students. And so we want to make sure that this idea that species can change over generations, because those individual traits help them survive to pass on the traits, is clearly addressed in the way we teach it to elementary students. And that is why I have included it as part of the information to make sure you include under section 3. And in the rubric that is seen in the rubric. I guess that's what I meant by that. So I hope that that helps. Again, I have modified it a little to be clear. Make sure that you're providing these illustrative examples, analogies, or connections to the real world and then explaining why those relationships connect to the topic studied and students in your lived experience. If you only do one or the other, then you can only get half credit. These analogies, examples, and connections to the real world will not come from the 3 resources, most likely. You may have gotten hints at them from the resources, but you're going to need to come up with these based on your students' lived experiences, or at least students that you know of in elementary grades. I hope that this helps, and I look forward to reading what you turn in. Thanks.